Hello, everyone. Today we'll have a chance to learn about pragmatic CEO's adventures with leadership. And this is all thanks to our guest tonight, Pawel Brodzinski. Hello, Pawel. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Actually, I'm not good because if you are from Poland, you're complaining, so I cannot say that I'm good. Officially not good. Not good at all.
Okay, fair enough. So it's my real pleasure to host my friend from all the old times, Pawel. Tonight we are all going to participate in a kind of collective interview with Pavel. I still think you have the end-to-end expertise in building software and in lean and agile methods, and you touched every aspect of building software and leading a company. So I also know you have most fun working with organizational cultures, and this is probably what we are going to focus tonight. And your ambition is to create exceptional workplaces. Is this correct?
Mostly, yes.
Cool. Very good. Anything you would like to add?
I don't think so. No,
Righty.
I'm
So
not. I'm not making it any easier for Piotr. Sorry.
that's fine. So guys, so this is how is going to work. I have prepared like around 12 questions, but I really hope you know contribute and feel free to jump in with any questions you have, right? Not waiting till the end of the session, just jump in immediately. So I've got a couple of warm-up questions. By the way, welcome Claudia, welcome Nikita, welcome Madhav.
Hello.
Good to see you. And yeah, let's start. So my first question, like you have a long-term relationship with Agile movement, right? You participated in many Agile conferences, and you also run trainings. You are also guest lecturer. So my question is like, who are you? Like, are you a manager? Are you a coach? Are you a leader? How do you call yourself?
Uh, from so if we said agile as a movement or as a community as our vantage point, I am a practitioner. So yes, I occasionally did training. I occasionally did coaching, but primarily I am implementing stuff in the company where I manage teams or the companies I lead, which, and since you mentioned conferences, which I think is unique in terms of 90 plus% of the speakers would be people who would consider themselves consultants, trainers, people who would jump into an organization, help them to a degree, and then jump out. And I'm living with the effects of my work for, like, at Lunar, where I work right now, for 12 years. So if I have screwed something up a dozen years ago, I had to fix it. It's not like I'm gonna leave and go for another gig. It's just my mess to clean up. So from the perspective of agile in general, I consider myself mostly a practitioner, but that's just one perspective.
Cool. And by the way, like what brought you, what made you a practitioner? Like, were you born with agility, or like did you practice any other school of thought?
Pragmatism. So it just helps, and it's So I do remember in the mid 2000s those discussions, like whether you can do agile versus be agile. And back then, like almost 20 years ago, it was already a superficial discussion, I think. Because you either do stuff that helps you, your organization, your teams, uh, and it doesn't really matter what label you put on it, whether it's agile or lean or whatever certified trademark methodology you want to pursue, or it doesn't help you, and you should kind of experiment away from what you are doing. So in a way, like something that was like putting me off in the early days of agile was this kind of uh, zeal that you had, like the only people who were doing agile was basically zealots, and that's not me, and I'm not buying that stuff. So what eventually brought me to that, and uh, lucky for me, early enough, was basically pragmatism, like seeing some bits and pieces that actually can help my teams to get better at what they did. And the further I could get away from this kind of officially trademarked, certifiable world of agile, I would. And then, like, given that pragmatism basically also means that whatever you're doing, you're trying to kind of experiment with. Like for me, at least for me, I'm not trying to redefine pragmatism. Uh, here. But for me, it does mean that you are trying stuff, stick with what works, throw out what doesn't work, or kind of learn from that and improve that, like PDSA, PDCA cycle, plan to study act. And that basically kept me going. And surprisingly, it seems that those experiences are valuable. But then it gets back to what I mentioned at the beginning, which is there are so few practitioners on those kind of community events sharing their experiences. So it's kind of easy to get through with such a message.
So I guess you must believe in servant leadership.
What does it mean? I mean, because it's I get you. It's such a nice term. I mean, I kind of redefine leader from I will people you behind my back and get you somewhere, to something I'm serving you. But honestly, what does it mean? Because like for me, by now, it's yet another empty label, the same as agile, the same as lean, like servant leadership. I've 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 seen so many servant leaders I wouldn't like to be led by. Um,
So how would you
so
describe it in your context then, Pavel? What's your
I
understanding?
I don't care about servant leadership. I care about good leadership.
So what's your understanding of good leadership then?
So just so servant leadership, isn't it like if when you call yourself like the chief bottle washer, or like isn't it like a manifestation of servant leadership, or
You tell me. I don't care.
okay.
So to answer your question, Bartek, what is good leadership? Um, I don't know if I have an answer for that, but here is where what I think about the situation when the actual leadership starts. It's not when you choose to be a leader, or where you choose to lead, or you are designated leader, anything like that. You become a leader when the first person decides to follow you. It's not your decision, never. So if we start again with this perspective, a good leader would mean a person who is like followed by in any given context by many people. And I like my context is not, context of thousands of people. I lead a company of 30-ish people. So I really do care about 25 followers. That's it. And I'm happy with that.
So I have a question. Isn't it more than that? It has to be, because looking at elections that might be coming this year, there are some very popular people who have many, many, many followers. I wouldn't describe them necessarily as good leaders, though.
But
So is that the only measure?
Define followers.
People prepared to go to a rally and do silly things, vote. Well, they're going behind that and coming along on a journey and repeating stupid things because the leader said it, for example.
They
do you see that?
They are effective leaders, though. I stand challenged. I stand challenged, Dan. So yes, there is more to that, as in, like whatever agenda you have. And I kind of made a subconscious assumption that I start with my ambition to do something good, to get teams to work better, to create a work environment that is exceptional by many measures, and then there is the effectiveness, which would be measured by followers. But yes, I get it. You can have an evil agenda, still be an effective leader. So arguably, I don't remember which book that was, but actually Osama bin Laden was mentioned as an effective leader.
Yeah.
Was he? Yes. Was he a good?
Was he leading a good place? Not so much. Yeah, I see what you mean there. Yeah, effective good leadership doesn't always lead to good outcomes. So you have to lead in the right direction too.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, okay, so I'll follow up with the next one. So, but still around the same topic. So, like, you're a CEO, right? And so what needs to happen in an organization, like for a CEO to feel comfortable to lead a company, like from this perspective of a chief cook, right, and bottle washer?
I can tell about my personal experience, but I would warn you not to generalize it.
Sure.
Because I think there is a good body of stories of companies that became what I call progressive organizations. So Frederick Laloux would call them teal organizations. There would be holacratic organizations. There are all sorts of names. Like there is sociocracy 3.0 and this kind of things. There are so many kind of named labels, sometimes certifiable named labels for that. But I put just an umbrella term progressive organizations on that. And there is a good body of stories about progressive organizations, companies that are built not around a hierarchy, a structure as this kind of organizational principle, but around a distributed autonomy. And again, there are different names to name that. Frederick Laloux would call that self-management. Don Reinertsen would call that decentralized control. Sometimes someone would come with this with distributed autonomy. Whatever you call that, basically the guiding principle is you give people more decision-making power. So if you look at those stories, at the successful stories, almost universally, there would be a leader, someone like pretty high up in the hierarchy, who was behind that transformation, or who was behind setting up the company in the first place, according to that principle. And there is fairly little in those stories about how people lived through that transformation. And I think that there's at least one huge challenge going through that, which is if you end up being high up in the hierarchy, being a CEO, a VP, a senior director, what have you, it means that you spend a good chunk of your career being in the management, being in the hierarchy, and you learn to have power, and you learn to like power because it's hard not to like it. Just just give you this kind of nice, shiny illusion of control, except you don't realize that it's just illusion, but you think it's control. And then giving that power up is really difficult. So when I joined Lunar, I joined as kind of a replacement CEO. And for the first time in my career, I was in a position where I could decide about literally every single thing in a company. And not only that, there were so many things that were working just right at Lunar that I thought, oh, so here's the perfect sandbox for me. Right now, I will be managing this organization. And I quickly learned that it doesn't work like this. And if I actually want the organization to be effective, I need to be giving up that power. And initially, so as long as you give people power, and I don't say only decision-making power because that's authority, but you also give them autonomy. You actually encourage them to use that power to make decisions. So initially, they would be making kind of straightforward, obvious decisions, and that feels nice. People are deciding about stuff, and they are doing it in the same way that you would. But then you are encouraging them to do more and more of that, and eventually, inevitably, they would start making decisions that you don't like. They're against your judgment, experience, opinion, better knowledge, whatever. And that's the hard part, because that's exactly where you actually have to fight yourself. You have to say, you have to let go in a way. You have to say, I still can get that power back, because ultimately, I mean, like, if the corporate law says anything, it says that I can make any decision at Lunar. So I can still kind of revert back all the changes that we went through. I can revert back the whole transformation, and I still have that power, this kind of red button that I can press. But the moment I do, I just ruin everything. It's not even going back to the square one. It's even worse, because now people understand that the whole thing, like the whole distributed autonomy, was a lie, and they got burned, and they are not going to try that again, even if I want them to. So that for me, that was absolutely a difficult experience, up to a point where I felt physical pain the first time when someone made a decision that I strongly disagreed with. And I still remember that that decision was worth like 500 zloty, 100 euro. It was as much as it cost the company. Like, it was nothing. It was absolutely irrelevant. It was absolutely safe. And I felt physical pain in my chest, fighting with myself to just let it go and accept that call. So I would say that this is my personal story. And I saw many organizations that failed at that point, where people actually didn't want, like, the people who used to be in power, the managers, the ruling class, if you will, they were declaring that they want to distribute autonomy. They were declaring that they want to give up the power. But when the push came to shove, they were not able to do that, for better or worse reason. And that was basically when they were showing people, okay, like, distributed autonomy, that's fine. You can make all the decisions that you want, as long as you are making the decisions that I would like you to make, which is not distributed autonomy, really. So my personal story, that was probably the most difficult thing, and just keeping going on that path, because like there were several of those kind of moments when we were increasing the sphere of influence of everyone. Yeah, but I cannot say whether it's universally true.
So you in what you said, I heard a lot of intention to create this kind of second type of leadership, which is not leader who is created by the first follower and creating followers, but actually leadership that is actually meant, as David Marquette says, leaders is there to create more leaders, not followers, right? So in order to pass autonomy and power, you need to create leaders, not followers, right?
I would totally subscribe to that. Like the whole model of actually getting people engaged in increasing people's sphere of influence, increasing people's decision-making power, increasing autonomy is actually creating more leaders. And I've been saying that for years, that whenever a company complains that they do not have enough leaders, they're simply wrong. We have plenty of leaders. Like almost anyone at Lunar is a leader. Except one of the things that we did, we also redefined what we call a leader, because it's so often that, especially in bigger organizations, it's so frequent that people would become leaders when they would get a business title with lead in it, technical lead, team lead, whatever. Then they are leaders, which is absolute bullshit. Because this is kind of a metaphor that I like to use. Imagine that you are running a team of three, or like you are part of team 3 or 4 people. It's just small software development team. You're working on a small project for a client, and then on 1 week you are facing 3 problems. One is that you realize that one of your teammates is underperforming. The second is a technical issue in the code, like something really nasty that's not straightforward to fix. And third, you have a communication issue with a client. And just imagine any team that you worked with, you and three other people. Now, if you think about those 3 problems, who would be the perfect person to lead the team effort to solve either of the 3 things? A, addressing the underperformer in a group, an underperformer in a group. B, leading the team to solve a complex, difficult technical issue. And 3, address a complex communication issue with a client. I don't know any single person on a planet Earth that would be the best candidate for a leader in all 3. I know some people who would be perfect to lead the team on 2 of those, very few of them. But most of the time, in a group of 3 or 4 people, you would pick a different leader to address either of those 3 issues. And that's fine, as long as you create this environment where people can step into the leadership role and step out. I will step in and lead the team effort when we are trying to solve the technical issue, but then it's your role, Piotr, to talk to the client and explain, why whatever issue, misunderstanding happened. And then it would be Dan who has so much empathy that he would be the best person to actually, figure out what is happening with this underperformance and how we as a team can help an underperformer to get back to get back, to a good shape. And then if we did this, design the structure, if we design the hierarchy in a way that we call, I don't know, Roman, the team lead, suddenly it all falls on his desk. And I don't care, and you don't care, and Dan doesn't care, because it's his job to do all this. And if if he's knowledgeable and reasonable enough, he will get us involved. But then there's so much pressure on Roman. and so little space for us to step up. So what I'm saying is, like, if you design an environment where like it's easily to step into a leadership role very contextually, even for a couple of hours, you suddenly learn that you have plenty of leaders in an organization. I don't say that everyone is a candidate for a great leader. I wouldn't go that far, but there are people who would be perfect in like very kind of edge casey specific scenarios to take over a lead.
Yeah, it really resonates. Leadership for me is very much situational and very much voluntary decision, right? Here and now, I have this kind of free will to decide whether I'm going to take on the role of the leader, and this is probably the most effective leadership I ever experienced. Yeah, thanks for.
Yeah.
And there's one more thing to that, which is when you are a designated manager and you create this kind of an environment where people can step up, suddenly you have so much free time. This is pure magic. You can focus on the actual stuff that helps an organization and the team in the long run, which you didn't have because you had to deal with all the fires before, and everyone was, you know, looking up like, what should we do, Pawel? I don't know. You tell me. Kind of. No, you don't even tell me. Just don't tell me. Just go fix it yourself. The last part is with a tongue in my cheek. It's not like, you know, don't come. It's not don't come with the problems. Come with the answers. This is bullshit too. So don't take me too seriously on this.
I think it's really interesting that almost everything you're describing is what people who know are calling servant leadership. But servant leadership's become one of those toxic terms that's almost meaningless because of the way it's been used in the world, especially in the world of agile, that people haven't really understood it. And I always think it's interesting if you take it out of the workplace and put it into sports teams. If you imagine a rugby team that I would coach, or a football team or anything, if you pick the captain and impose the thing on them that they don't want it and no one else thinks they're the leader anyway, it's going to go badly. But typically what happens, especially in amateur teams rather than the professional teams, it's kind of like everyone, you could just say to everyone, point at the captain, and that person goes, oh, okay, it's me then. I guess I better do that then. It's just like, it's obvious to everyone. And I've even done that in the workplace, and, you know, form a new scrum team, and who's the scrum master? Everybody point at the scrum master. Oh, okay, you think it should be me? Kinda. Do you want to give it a go? Need any help?
Yeah, absolutely agree. Group dynamics rules, right? Yeah. So, Paweł, so do I hear you correctly that if I ask you the question like, what's the most important for a CEO to lead a company, or actually what is the role of CEO in the first place? You would say it's creating the culture of enablement and empowerment and autonomy, or is there something?
I would say it depends.
Okay.
On the context. I mean, like, if you are asking me about Lunar, then yes, it's the culture. Because then all the other stuff takes care of itself to a degree, to a large degree. But take another another job experience, and I would say the answer would be different. I mean, like, I had one job where I was doing in a very unstructured way. I give you that, and very unorganized, like intuitive way. I was doing a lot of stuff that I'm doing right now with Lunar. But then I had the part of the organization that was above my head. And actually, in that setup, the most important part of my job for me was basically translating those two worlds. That my boss, the CEO, understood all this stuff, all the crazy stuff that we were doing, in my division, in my group, and then vice versa. That those 150 people understood that the corporate structure above us doesn't play according to the same rules that we do, because I don't have power to change that. So it's like continuous translation of two very different worlds back and forth, just to be able to protect the stuff that we were doing, down there, but at the same time to align that stuff that we were doing down there with the goals, the business goals, the organizational goals that were coming from the top, which I couldn't. There was also quite a lot of toxic stuff going up there, and I had to navigate that as well. But it was the part that I couldn't change. It was just given. So give me a context, and I would define that role differently depending on the context.
I was asked like similar question a couple of weeks ago, like what's the role of the leadership team in companies, and especially like technical leadership teams. And I said that these guys these days, these guys are really responsible, except from creating culture, of course, and so on, the stuff we covered today. But in terms of like running business in the long term, I said they are responsible for enabling the wide adoption of new technologies, because I see more and more bigger and bigger gap between what technological companies can create, like the big five, Google and stuff, and Microsoft. The adoption of the novel technologies is really like far beyond, far lower than I would expect, right? It takes ages for companies to adopt novel technologies from Google and from Microsoft, and companies stick to the technologies that just work for them and they are efficient, and they just invest in what's really necessary to transition to. But otherwise, the gap is, in my opinion, the gap is increasing. So, but that's that was the question was asked in another context. I'm really curious what you think. How is Lunar adopting to the stream of new technologies, which is like crazy fast these days?
I'm officially old because I'm not trying Lunar to be on the cutting edge of technology. So actually, anytime a potential Lunar Logic is a professional services company, which is a fancy way of saying that we build products and projects for our clients. We are, I hate that term, we are a software shop. So basically, when we are talking about new business with our potential clients, it typically starts with a potential client describing an idea for a product or a part of the product to us, and then this is the starting point. Now, guess what? Every single freaking product out there these days is an AI product. It has an AI component, which is absolute bullshit. Most of them neither need one, nor it makes sense to add one. But because AI is so trendy, basically they put a AI label on it. Let's go 3 to 4 years back. Change AI for blockchain. Same story over again. Who does care about blockchain these days? Again, don't get me wrong. There are companies that are invested in blockchain. There are companies that build their business model on blockchain, but people who do not put blockchain label just to make their product look more attractive. Right now, they put AI label on it. But this is kind of a long way of saying that making a full circle to what we started with, pragmatism. I don't think that, pragmatically speaking, many companies need to be on the bleeding edge of technology. I mean, we do need to understand what's happening in the technological landscape. Obviously, we need to catch up with whatever tools are available. I mean, if you are a software developer these days and you are not using generative AI to help you with your everyday job of building software, you may be risking that you will be out of the job market soon. So you have to learn the new tricks. But by the same token, let's just go back 20 years back. If you were a software developer back then and you haven't started using, less than 20 years, and you haven't started using Stack Overflow as your main source of knowledge about software development, then probably you were on a straight line to be made redundant. But then again, this is how this job of software development is changing. And I think that there are we need to be able to, what happens with, I don't know, technology stacks, the programming languages, so that whatever we build for our clients will be maintainable in the long run. They will be able, once we are not working on it anymore, they will be able to hire developers who would maintain that code. But beyond that, I mean, did we understand what was happening with blockchain? Yes, we did. Did we jump on that train? No, we didn't. Do we want to be AI software development company? No. We are using AI, obviously, but we use it in pragmatic way whenever it helps. So I would actually challenge that, like, all the companies need to be on bleeding edge of technology development. I would speculate actually that, which I have no proof whatsoever to back up my words, but I would speculate that availability of generative AI would make generic software development a commodity. That sooner rather than later, if all you need is basically a simple website that right now you hire a WordPress company to build it for you, you will get that on a click of a button, or like actually writing a few prompts to the AI. But what follows is that where technology companies will be still delivering value would be anywhere beyond what's doable by dumping your thoughts into a prompt that would translate to whatever AI would produce, which is creative process, which is the whole experience that we are using to help our clients, for example, understand the subconscious assumptions that they are making, challenge those assumptions, help them to reevaluate their business model. All the stuff that they won't do even if they are supported with AI that will be version 6.0 or 7.0, that is so much better than what we have right now. So this is what I think is what I believe, what I speculate it will be a competitive advantage. Not actually technical skills, because they are going to be more and more of a commodity, but all the stuff, all the creative, conceptual, interpersonal, let me say that, work that you are doing on top of technology, where the ideas cross-pollinate. This is where the value will be.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, speculating. I have no idea, really. But I will tell you what will happen in the future, obviously, nonetheless.
Awesome. Really cool. Anyone has a question now for Paweł?
I have, if I may. So in the beginning, Paweł, you said about those progressive organizations, speaking about the TILs, sociocracy, holacracy, etc. And you said that one of the obstacles to overcome is to make more decision power, to share it with people, right? And to give that autonomy. So that's one of the obstacles from the perspective of that former person high in the hierarchy. But on the other hand, you also said about enabling that situational leadership or creating leaders so you can share that autonomy with them. And I think that usually people are just afraid of it, to take the accountability. So what you as a leader can do to create those new leaders who won't be afraid of taking the autonomy?
Fantastic observation and very true. So let me give you an anecdote, just to start with. There is a kind of, in a way, a sister company to Lunar, like very similar. Like it stems like different story, but at some point we were like really similar, operating in Krakow. Both companies in Krakow, similar size. Similar aspirations when it comes to evolving our culture. We were a couple of steps ahead, but at some point we were kind of discussing what can we learn from each other. And at some point they decided that they are going to get rid of their managers. Fast forward a few months later, I was talking to one of their developers, and what did they do with their newly gained power to make decisions as teams? Well, they tried it for a couple of months, and then they elected managers. They didn't want any of those. So the first thing is you cannot mandate that transformation. Like really, doesn't work. And and what follows is that it's a process, and the process that not everyone would follow at the same pace. But again, doesn't matter, because the goal is not for everyone to make all the decisions, but the goal is for enough people to be making enough decisions. At the end of the day, the most difficult decisions would still fall onto the shoulders of the usual suspects, namely me. When we need to fire someone from Lunar, you may guess who is taking that call, because it's awfully difficult decision to make. But then if you just try to, if you just try to enable more and more people to be making more and more decisions and more serious decisions, you can do it like very contextually. And I often cite two of my early strategies. One was when someone came to me in my early days at Lunar, when like still almost all decisions was made by me. And they would ask me, hey, Pawel, can we do this? Can we buy that? Can we agree to something else? I would, instead of saying yes or no, which would take me 2 seconds, or better, saying yes or no and explaining why yes or why no, which would take me like 2 minutes, I would just sit with that person and I would explain all the dimensions that I would take into consideration. So, for example, someone would come to me and they would ask me, "Hey, Paweł, can we sponsor that event, that community event? It's kind of really cheap." I would be okay. So, how much does it cost? 500 zloty. Fine, we have one bit of data. Now, how much value we would get for that 500 zloty? And they would be like, oh, so marketing materials, I don't know, visibility, blah, blah, blah. I was like, fine, these are the items. But what is the value of those items? Let's try to quantify that somehow. I mean, where is this event? Like on the other part, in the other part of the country, will we hire a developer from that city? Have we hired a developer from that city in the past? Not really. So how likely it is? Then we would learn that, well, okay, maybe we don't expect that value to be that great. But then again, okay, so we are about to spend 500 zloty. What are the other ways to spend those 500 zloty? Maybe we can go for beers with a team. Wouldn't it provide better value? And also, how much of a dent that expense would be on the company budget? And obviously, in this case, it's like nothing. I mean, it's just 500 zloty. But then again, it's another dimension that I would take into consideration, because if we're spending 500, doesn't matter. If we are spending 100,000, does matter. And then what kind of precedent it would set for the further decisions about sponsoring different community events? We would go through that, and it would take 20 minutes probably. And then I would be like, okay, so now you know everything that I know. You're free to make your decision. And then I could do that. I could either take that decision, but I would rather leave it with, to the person who came to ask for that decision. But then I would feel like, okay, so it's informed decision. I can still disagree with it, because someone can take the same bits of data and come up with a different conclusion. But at least I was sure that that decision would be informed, and that also people, like, throughout that discussion, people would get a lot of my perspective. So it was also kind of a way of influencing that decision, not necessarily enforcing it or coercing person to go with the same idea that I would, but kind of influencing the outcome. So this was one strategy. The other was kind of more reckless. People would come to me and they would be like, "Hey, Pawel, can we buy this? Can we do that?" And I would be, "Well, can we?" That would be all that I said. Like, can we? It actually became a meme at Lunar. Like, people would just put my picture and like, can you? And I was doing that as a way of kind of reversing the table in terms of who is doing the homework. Because if you are coming from a position of a person who does not have authority to make a decision, and you come to me as a decision maker, it's kind of easy to ask. Doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, this is what I'm teaching my 11-year-old. Doesn't hurt to ask. The worst thing that can happen is that you hear a no. But then, if asking is cheap, you don't have to consider whether it even does make sense. And me asking you, well, can you do this? Is kind of reversing the table. Like, just go back to your desk, think for 5 minutes, and tell me, does it make sense or not? And I was doing that up to a point where one of our developers, Marcin, like, I was eating lunch, and he was like, "Hey, Pawel, can I?" And I interrupted him right there before he even was able to say what he wanted to ask about. I was like, "Marcin, can you?" And he looked at me and said, "Yes," and went back to his desk. I still don't know what he decided about. But this was kind of a way of creating this kind of environment where people can creating this vacuum in a way where people can step in and make a decision. They didn't have to if they didn't want to, but at least I was refusing as long as I could to make the decision for them. So this was the kind of this is kind of an easy way to train people to make small decisions. And once they can do it, you can create those small silos of decisions. Like, I don't know. Again, my common example. accepting time of request. Why the hell any manager on planet Earth would accept anyone's time of request? Just come to me and tell me when you are off, but make sure that things are being taken care of. That's it. And this is kind of an easy silo to train. And then you just basically push the levels of authority further and further and further and further till an intern on their second week of internships fire you. And that's fun. Never happened yet.
Awesome. We've got 2 more people with questions. I'm not sure which one of you was first. So.
Oh, Zoom does that for you. It puts us in order.
Oh, come on.
Zoom's clever. So he says that knowing I'm next. So yeah, you run lots of experiments in your organization. You try lots of things and see if they work, and some don't. Is there one you wish you could get back?
Say again, is that the one that...
Is there an experiment or a decision that went so badly you wish you could just take that back? That never happened. Let's have a do-over.
No, I've triggered some serious screw-ups that I'm totally not proud of. I was a person who triggered, I think, the biggest drama in lunar history, which was based on people beliefs. So for years we were building diverse group of people. Up to a point where, and we also, so one thing, diversity. Second thing, we are also building that autonomy. Up to the point where people started believing that they can make Lunar whatever they want it to be. And there were visions of Lunar that were like basically opposites. And then there was some stuff going on socially in Poland, like politically, socially, serious shit. And then, not intentionally, but I kind of triggered the discussion about beliefs. It wasn't the intention. It wasn't the outcome I wanted to get or I expected, but I should have known better. Long story short, a year later, engagement and atmosphere went to absolute shit. 20% of the company was gone, and not only just 20% of people, but also very cohesive group. We lost a lot of diversity that quarter, actually two quarters, when the bulk of leaving happened. Now, would I take it back? No. The cost was tall, but if not that, we wouldn't have learned some of the stuff that we did. And for example, if you told me 4 years ago that we actually need anti-discrimination workshops at Lunar, or formal, written in lawyerly language anti-discrimination policy, I would laugh at you and call you names. We do have those. Lesson learned the hard way. As I said, price to pay was tall, but if that had to happen for the outcome, for us to reach that outcome, so be it.
You got to go through some stuff to get to where you need to be, I guess. Yeah, that's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I wish it was all easy.
It wouldn't be fun.
Yeah, that's true too.
Alrighty, Layad, you are the one with the question.
Sorry, I was unmuting myself. Yeah, it wasn't really a question. It was more reflection of what was said, because we spoke about culture many times, and they're all leading to what we're doing at the end of the day. And then bringing maybe a summary as I see it of from a perspective of an agile coaching organization and transformation. And I really liked the approach that you're actually building the culture through coaching questions. And it brought to mind, without not coaching as so when we speak about agile coaching, it's not live coaching. It's asking the right questions to people for them to be able to learn and take, as you said, take the decision themselves where they need to. So you're actually building up those building blocks. But if I understood differently, please say so. So it reminds me a quote about give a man a fish and you feed him, for a day, and teach a man to fish and you feed him for life. So actually building that culture, or the turn the ship around that we've put in the comments, it's kind of giving the authority to the people where they need to have more authority, and use the CEO to do other things to progress the company and the strategy and the market. So that's from culture building perspective, it's very important. Two other things that came to mind while I was hearing things, and from my experience at least, not as a CEO, is that people a lot of time don't have the courage to be vulnerable, and that's blocked them from asking the right questions, or from giving answers that they already know or already have. Because they're afraid from getting the no or the wrong feedback. So that's something that we want to actually encourage or verify, that it's not about the blaming, it's about the learning. And I think that's a very important side from a human perspective, if we want to allow those behaviors that you mentioned. And last bit, just an acronym, sorry, that I like to use and bring to the teams. Maybe it will help you to bring the context. It's the word failure, or fail, sorry. I don't know if you know what fail stands for. It's first attempt in learning. It's not failure, there's no failure. So it's first attempt in learning, and I put it in a lot of executive sessions on the board and stick it there. And then they start actually to call it failures at the end of the day, because we're celebrating them. Those are the ones that helps us grow. So just an anecdote based on what you said, think that was, I don't know, contribute a bit back.
So you made me think about one more thing when you mentioned vulnerability, which I think is super important on the journey of increasing autonomy, which is, yes, I would sometimes vehemently argue against a proposed decision. And we already reached a point where I feel kind of safe to basically participate in a decision-making process as one of the people, and not a person who would basically take over the whole process. So I would sometimes argue very strongly against the decision. But once it's made, I would defend it as it was mine. It's like, and this is kind of, because then you create this environment where people actually can get vulnerable, because they know that, the decision-making process will be whatever, a couple of days, 3 days, it may be a difficult time, but once they made the decision, I would stand by them. And then it's like, whatever happens, I may not like the decision, but I would be defending, not because I like it, I just respect the process. So, and I was making space for coaching, because I actually, it was today, one of my ex-colleagues approached me, oh, would you become my coach? And my answer to that was, coach? No. I don't like coaching. I don't know how to coach. I don't want to know how to coach. That's not my thing. Mentoring, I can do that.
Yeah. So it's a very thin line.
And I understand what you're saying. I'm just allergic to this kind of artificial structure of coaching that it's so popular. Like I will
Yeah.
just, I know the answer, but I need to hear it from you. So I will be asking a question till I hear that answer from you. Doesn't make any sense. Like for me, I don't say that it doesn't make sense at all, but for me. So this was the case. I don't say that I cannot ask questions. I can. I'm not proud of the quality of them, if you will.
But all this brings me to a question, like, to what extent, Paweł, you are aware of your leadership style on daily basis? And do you care? I mean,
To a large extent, and I do. Shortest answer ever. But again, it took me years to build self-awareness. I know where I shine. I know where my shortcomings are, and I learned to accept them to a large degree. Even when I'm not necessarily controlling all my behaviors or actions, I'm still aware of those. So on occasions, I would be short-tempered, and you could totally see it. I mean, for example, we are discussing, how to approach, I don't know, how to approach internships, and we still don't have the candidates yet. And we were discussing, like different technologies that we want to hire interns for. And then someone brings an issue like, but who will coach an intern in this particular technology? I'm like, who the fuck cares at this stage? Like literally, who cares? I mean, we will figure it out. And then there will be answer, but you are assuming that it will be this person or that person, and obviously this or that person would be my first choices, but if they do not volunteer to do that, I will find another option. And I don't think we should spend half an hour, like figuring out 4 months ahead of who will be the actual mentor for an actual intern. We don't have it, we don't even have an idea who will it be, or better, whether we will find a suitable candidate. And then, like on such occasions, I would act out, and sometimes people would basically point out that maybe it's not really productive, and I would try to act on that feedback instantly. Not necessarily always easy. So there are lots, and I'm mentioning that as an example, but that's just like one of many shortcomings that I have. It's just the part of me, and I know how to work around to a degree. Yeah.
what would you like advise to other CEOs?
Be authentic. Because me getting into that discussion about like who will be mentoring that intern in that situation would not be authentic, because I really don't care. So I could so being authentic, I could either be bored and basically kill the mood in the whole otherwise productive session with 5 other people or 4 other people, or pretend that I care and then hate myself because no one is giving me back that half an hour. Or I could be myself, and then it's so much easier. I mean, like it's not an argument for so-called wholeness. I mentioned teal organizations. One of 3 pillars of teal is wholeness. Let's bring our whole selves to work. Absolute bullshit. Actually, the story that I mentioned when Dan asked the question about the worst decisions, this was to a large degree we encourage bringing our whole selves to work. Bam, that was the outcome. So no, don't bring your whole selves to work, but be authentic. Be limited. Limit yourself. I mean, like understand what you are bringing, understand which part of you are okay to be at the office, like in the professional context, and which are not. Because, you know, as much as I wouldn't like to, I have my own biases, I have my prejudice. Do I want to bring that to work? Hell no. Do I
But
want
wait a second. Wait a second. So if you want to be authentic, then you need to bring your whole self to work, right?
no.
No.
No. I need to be aware of my whole self, or as much of a whole as possible. But then I need to limit myself on occasions. So it doesn't mean that I would be pretending that I'm someone else. That's not authentic. But acting out on the fact that I'm a racist, totally not okay. Not that I am. Just to be clear, I'm not. But and there is actually like you could take so many situations where there is a conflict and it spirals out of control, and these are basically people being their whole selves, and if they constrain themselves, being still authentic but being kind of self-constrained, it might not have come to the worst. And this is what I believe we should. This is one of the lessons, again, like kind of side lessons of the whole transformation. That I don't believe in wholeness. I believe in respecting other people, and that itself is contradictory to bringing your whole self to work, because ultimately you don't respect everyone. That's it.
I think there are a lot of things that get said as platitudes like that, and I would challenge every single person watching this live or on the video. If you are married or have a partner, there are parts of yourself you don't show to the person you love and respect the most. There are, it might be really small, but you decide, no, you don't need to know about that. And we all do that. And I'm not trying to be horrible. If Angela's watching, hi. There are, we all have a little bit that we say, okay, you don't need to know that. And it works the same. And we often see these platitudes being used. And yeah, be authentic in what you do bring. Make sure it's the side of you want. And I think you can choose. I mean, I got a little brand name up there. That means something to me. And it started off as My Ziggy Stardust. So you aware of David Bowie and his crippling stage fright? But Ziggy Stardust was David Bowie without the stage fright. David Bowie with all of that extra ego and what he chose to present. Just saying. That's how I got to release the Dan Brown that I wanted to be and wanted to present. It was still me, but it amplified some parts of me and just ignored other parts of me that were nothing to do with it. And it just enabled me to be able to be more effective for the benefit of those around me. And I think that's what we've got to do, right? We've got to be authentic, because if you're not yourself, then everyone can tell, right?
I don't know, but
almost instantly.
You will lose in the cycle of pretending somewhere, and you will start kind of contradicting yourself in years. So that at least that's my explanation of that. But what would I know?
It sounds like self-engineering for the better in the workplace, right?
And it's also easier and more fun to be authentic, unless you're a super sad and boring person.
It's less tiring as well.
Yeah. Pretending is tiring. Wearing a mask is tiring. And this is why, as much as I'm against wholeness, I'm against of the idea of like what I was taught, and probably most of us, if not all of us, were: bring your professional self to work. Like put yourself in this box, in a suit and tie, and like this is the picture of professional people working in professional organizations. I don't care. I don't want to be that person. This is actually this is my professional armor. You don't want to see me on casual Fridays. It's like, this is business professional, a hoodie.
But I think this is talking back to something you were saying earlier. You were talking about how some people just, when they act in certain positions. I remember that I worked in a team and it was great. It was fabulous. We all used to really get on well. Manager left. One of the team got promoted to being in charge and literally overnight just turned. He just didn't know what to do, went to all his insecurities and got fired within a month. That was absolutely what happened to the guy. And he was great. He was a brilliant guy until suddenly he was given this authority that he couldn't deal with. And no one explained to him what a manager actually does. And for some reason, he and many other people look at all of the worst managers they ever had in their lives and steal all of those traits and just say, well, I'll be that person because that's what a manager is. And there's a really good coach in America, a guy called Joe Ehrman. And he's training high school American football. I know it's a bit off topic, but he used to be an NFL player. He was like the worst of the worst, you know, came from a rough area, got lots of money, did all the things you expect. Then some things happened in his life. He became a church minister, tried to fix downtown Baltimore, tricky. Then he realized 90% of the problems he was seeing were because of toxic masculinity. So there's no point in me coaching the NFL or even in college. I've got to get these kids when they're in high school. And my mission, or his mission, is to change the determination of what masculine means in America. Because kids are told, be a man. And they're told in the playground, and it's reinforced with beatings. Frankly, that's basically where you learn. And no one explains what it means. And so he actually works with young men and gives them some purpose and helps them be better men. And they also happen to be really good at a football team, but that's a secondary byproduct. The point of it is to do that. And it's amazing how often we don't think about what the thing means, whether it's be a leader, be a manager, be a coach, be a man, be a professional. And there's just expectations that we make up in our own head almost. No one sits down and says, this is what it actually means. And I think that's the kind of servant leader you are, Pawel, is the... you might not like the phrase. You certainly are.
But by the same token, this is exactly the very same issue we have with distributed autonomy. Since the primary school, the kindergartens are kind of a different beast, but since the first day of primary school, the education system teaches our kids to comply, to listen to the manager. And that manager is called a teacher, and then a head teacher, whatever it's called. But then they're going through stages of education system and they land in a modern corporation where it's the same thing over again. It's no wonder that people do not want to take autonomy, and it's because it's not native to them. Any autonomy, any need of autonomy that they did have was being killed for like 25 years or 20 years by the time they joined an organization such as Lunar. And the funny thing is, I don't have the actual scientific data to back this up. But if you read like how humanity worked before the agriculture, when there was like hunters gatherers, we were living in small bands. There was so much autonomy in those groups. It wasn't against the popular belief. It wasn't like the men would go hunting and the women would stay in the village or go gathering, mushrooms and berries and stuff. Actually, people decided what they wanted to do, and it was okay for men to go gathering mushrooms, or for women to join the hunting party, or for that matter, for them not to do anything. And the community would take care of those. So if they lived in this kind of setup for thousands of years, I would speculate that we are genetically programmed to actually need autonomy. it just lasts 200 years, like 150 years, just literally killed that, at least in the corporate world, killed that need altogether. Because then again, agriculture went south on several occasions too. But still, like there is so much more programming in terms of pursue your autonomy, your need of autonomy, than just be a cog in a machine that we are living. We are considering modern management, like what, since Taylor, right? 150 years, 120 years, really. And this was I mean, like, I'm not Taylor hater though, because he provided the actual tool that we needed 120 years ago. We needed to build a million of Ford T's in a year, and it wouldn't be possible without Taylor. I mean, we needed or not, like we wanted to do that. But right now, the work is not mechanic, repetitive. It's creative, it's innovative. The change is faster. The work has changed, but the methods did not. And I think we need to change those methods.
Interestingly, every conversation I have these days, all of them touch schooling system, like as something that needs to evolve before we can make a leap to some new organizational constellations of structures. But one more question, Paweł. So since you care a lot and value the self-awareness as a CEO, as a leader, my question is, like, how do you reflect on your style and how do you develop it? You said you don't like coaching, and usually CEOs have coaches, right? They have mentors. They kind of do the socializing events with other CEOs. What is your way?
Neither of the mentioned strategies, because I'm a rebel. So I would do that differently. So actually, this is talking about self-awareness. At one point, I was kind of asking myself a question, like, so how do I challenge myself? How do I validate that I don't become this self-righteous asshole that I so much hate, who, like, the thought leaders of this world? How do I make sure that, when I'm down that path, someone would call me, "Hey, Paweł, don't go down that way." And obviously, I mean, like, coaching, one idea. I didn't want to do that. Organizing kind of a group of mentors, like, I don't have board of directors that in some cases could work like this. So I decided, actually, who cares whether I'm a good leader or not? Not my board of directors, hypothetical, not my, I don't know, owners of the company, shareholders, whatever. Who does care? People at Lunar.
Please, I suppose.
People at Lunar. So I basically created what I call advisory board, invited some people who I value their opinion, I trust their judgment, and they're my sounding board. And I can trust that whenever, and they see me every freaking day because we are working together. That's even better than any kind of coaching, mentoring kind of thing. So whenever I'm dropping a ball, they don't need to wait for an advisory board meeting, whatever. They would tap me on the shoulder and they would be like, "Your ball down there, pick it up. It's your shit." So, and it kind of works. It does kind of rely on the assumption that I do have people who are with us long enough, to develop this kind of sense, and we have developed this relationship, and they are free to, go ahead and criticize me for anything. But then it's also aligned with, like the whole culture that we are trying to build, that we don't want people to be leaving Lunar for after 2 years, which is industry standard in our niche. We want them to leave Lunar after 12 years or never, really. But not there, definitely. But the average seniority at Lunar, like the time people stay at Lunar is more than twice of the industry standard in our niche. So I do have those people who are 10 years around, for 10 years around.
Awesome. I think it's a good place to park. I personally feel refreshed with the pragmatic CEO's advice on leadership and your personal journey. Thank you very much, Pavel.
I actually should hate the fact that you mentioned CEO so many times during this meetup.
That's where my first question comes from. Like, who do you feel like, coach or mentor or CEO, leader?
And my answer was pragmatist. Practitioner and pragmatist.
Practitioner.
And then I'm like, I would be called as freaking CEO all over the place. I'm just joking. As much as I don't play this card, like every day I don't play this card, I know that I am. So for whatever reasons, if the company goes down under, it's kind of my personal responsibility, and it adds to
But I need to admit, I do
others.
it on purpose, just to really stress it out that you are sharing your experience as a practitioner, having a position of CEO, which is, in my opinion, we need more such voices of practitioners and people responsible than advisors all and all over again, right? So this is why I stress it so many times. Sorry to make you uncomfortable. So, ladies and gentlemen, it was my pleasure to host Pawel Brodzinski today, CEO of Lunar Logic, the pragmatic leader. The recording will be shortly available on YouTube. Thank you so much for your participation, guys. Layad, Bartek, Roman, Dan, and Oliver, Claudia as well. Thank you very much. Stay in touch. There'll be more talks on leadership this season. We have amazing guests lined up. We've got Douglas Talbot. We've got Michael Hammond. Oh my God, yes. I can't believe this. That's true. So yeah, please stay in touch. Thank you for tonight. Pavel, thank you again. And
thanks for having me.
Enjoy your personal journeys. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks.